Hey everybody, Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest. I'm here with Judy Ledlee. She is a process engineer for Black Veatch. She's also one of our 2021 Young Professionals. As I've noted in the videos last week, we are showing all of them off this month of May every Tuesday and Thursday in one-on-one video interviews. This is to help you guys understand kind of what makes them tick, understand their personalities a little bit more, and get a better understanding of their professional development and career. So Judy, thank you so much for being on the call. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
And congratulations also on being a young professional this year. I forget this every single time. It's the number one thing I should be saying.
No, thank you. I really appreciate the honor.
So I wanted to start with your career. Could you talk a little bit about your trajectory? What kind of got you interested in water to begin with, and how did you end up in the position that you are now?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I got interested in water because in general, I value our natural resources. And growing up, I kept hearing more and more news stories about how we're contaminating, using up these resources. So I knew I wanted a career that benefited the world in some way. And so I chose to focus in the environmental sector. For my first job out of college, I got a job doing environmental health and safety in United Technologies in their leadership program. And that was honestly a great way to see the different ways that a big manufacturing company was driving their environmental goals. So that really opened my eyes to seeing the conscious efforts that big industry is taking and investing in reducing their environmental impact, especially in the water sector. So that really impressed me. So inspired me to go back to grad school and research new and better ways of treating water there. And then so for my PhD, I was researching membrane distillation technology, which is a technology that's being explored in the industrial water treatment sector, and it's used for desalinating water. I got to work on some really cool projects there with a lot of great collaborations and work with a lot of industry partners that really helped me keep my focus and help me keep my career track on the more like applied approach. And so then after graduating, I got a job at Evoqua Water Technologies as an applications engineer in their MEMCore ultrafiltration group. And there it was cool to see like all this research and technology really come to life in the systems that they were building. And it was cool to get there and work on how to optimize those systems. I know this has been a long journey, and then now finally I'm at Black Veatch and I'm a process engineer here. And so it's been a great experience, honestly, broadening my water treatment knowledge outside of just the membrane sector and working on all kinds of water treatment problems.
Yeah, that's really interesting that it's like you narrowed your scope and then you've widened it a little bit more. That's got to be really rewarding to know that like, all right, I've kind of mastered a little bit of this thing. Now I can try and master something else, and suddenly my knowledge is like threefold, fourfold kind of a thing.
Yeah, it is very different to go from like being a specialist to now being more of a generalist. But honestly, I still think it behooved me to become a specialist more in just everything. Just know more about everything is really the answer.
Yeah. Now, one of the things from your survey that really struck me and I thought was really interesting, you kind of created this perpetual ultimate frisbee game at college, essentially.
Yeah.
You started this ultimate frisbee game, and then it became like this regular thing that people would do. And even now, people are still playing this regular game that you started so many years ago. And now you also play semi-professionally as for ultimate as well. What is it about ultimate that you love so much that you've made it such a big part of your like your personal life, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that kind of blends into your professional life a little bit later.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was cool. Actually, that game I started it at right after graduating college. It was my first job out of college. And that was fun because many of the people in the office, a regular office job. And so there was not sometimes that much fun to be had. And so we started this game off as a Wellness Wednesday activity to get people just moving around a little bit more. And then gradually it took on a life of its own. And now people play almost every day, depending on their work schedule. Mm-hmm. So that was fun to be a part of that and to see professionals who are very focused in the office, like enjoy and relax and have a good time with colleagues and other people in the area.
Yeah. Just kind of
And
shifting
so,
that focus from that professional to something more competitive, an outlet almost.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I really love the culture of Ultimate because in some ways, Ultimate is like any other sport. There's two teams running up and down a field, chasing an object, which is either like a disc or like a ball for many other sports. You're trying to score. But the one thing that's special about Ultimate is that it's self-officiated. And this translates into a culture where players treat each other with more respect and recognize that we're all the same, right? We're all playing the same game. Really, we're on the same team in a way, rather than thinking of people as opponents who you're trying to beat. And as a result, the community is full of people who like playing sports and like being competitive, but maintain a more balanced perspective.
Mhm. That's a really interesting thing. I've never thought of it that way, but now that I think about when I've played Ultimate, it really is a self-officiated kind of thing. It's just like, oh no, I screwed up. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
fine to say
exactly.
that.
Right, right, right. Yeah, like I fouled you instead of waiting for the person who was wronged to complain, right? You can admit,
Mhm.
yeah, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
that
Ultimate too.
Yeah, so that kind of gets me into what I wanted to talk about, kind of like blending that personal kind of thing into the professional. Like, what are some of the skills and things that you learned from Ultimate that have translated to your professional life? I imagine one of them is like this self accountability thing of like, hey, I screwed this up, I will fix it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's definitely been a big part of it. And hate to admit it, but I have, at sometimes I do not perform at my best at all times. And so acknowledging that, facing up to it and remedying it is very important. And so one of the other things that I've taken from Ultimate is being a member of a team and really learning to work together with teammates in sometimes like high stress situations and in situations where you want to give and receive feedback very quickly. And so sometimes in those situations, emotions are running high and things aren't always said in the most tactful manner. But, I've learned to not take some of that criticism personally, but, you think about what's being said, like, okay, this is what they meant, whether or not how it came out. Like, do I agree? Do I disagree? And then how can I either incorporate their feedback, or why do I have a different opinion and how can I best express that? I've also been working on then, also giving feedback in a constructive manner and not, berating someone for either making a mistake, not piling on, but, being respectful in that way.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard about this term like extreme ownership. If all parties take extreme ownership of what they contribute to a project, you do have this like mutual respect for each other, because you're saying, I know what I did wrong and this is how I'm going to fix it and how I'm going to make your life easier. And if everyone does that, everyone's life gets just that little bit easier overall.
Yeah, definitely.
So, what moving back kind of like to the professional side of things, what most excites you about the future of the industry? What are the You talked a little bit about how like you were the specialist, you kind of generalized a little bit now, and that's been an exciting prospect for you. What's on the horizon for you in terms of excitement when it comes to your career and your job path and all that?
Yeah, I'd say what excites me most about the future of the water industry is how the industry's slowly embracing data analytics to generate better operating recommendations. Sometimes the water industry can be slow to adopt new technologies, but I think we're really seeing utilities and companies start to look at their processes and a little bit and try to optimize them a little better by using some of the data that they've been collecting regularly through their SCADA systems and everything like that, and think of ways to make their process better. I think
Mhm.
that's exciting.
Yeah. And in what ways does that help you then with your job, like as a process engineer, when you have access to that type of data? How are you able to help utilize that and help them realize some of the solutions as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like all the process people, like we're big nerds, so we love seeing the data and looking at the trends and figuring out, like, okay, could you save some chemicals here? Could you lower your energy costs by not running during peak? Like, how much would that really save you? Is that worth the headache? Things like that. And it's a fascinating problem every time.
Yeah, what's the low hanging fruit? What's the more difficult type of thing? What can we do that will make your life easier without making it harder?
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool to see some of the new things that are coming out every time, like all the time in water quality analytics, right? Like, how can we start to get this information faster, more accurately? And then with these greater tools, like, can we start to predict what's going to happen rather than just being retroactive?
Mhm. Yeah, very very interesting. I am very interested in the whole data analytics thing. I like data nerd stuff for like my personal fitness tracking and all that kind of stuff. So I can
Yeah.
only
Mhm.
imagine when you apply that feeling to this process goal for something that's so critical to life, it's got to be
Mhm.
even more satisfying and rewarding to solve problems.
Yeah.
So what the last question I have for you is one I'm asking all of the young professionals this year. And I think it's one that's really valuable and important because it's about workforce. And workforce is something that we know over the past several years is becoming a greater and greater challenge for all blue collar work, so to speak, for all trade work and whatnot. That it's hard to find qualified people, and there's really a need to try and cater to people and get them more interested in the industry. So the question to you is, if you were in a position where you could cater to those people, how would you cater to them? And how would you try to grab the interests of the next generation of water industry workers?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think that there is, throughout our culture, that people are increasingly aware of water scarcity issues and emerging contaminant issues because you can see them in the news all the time. And many people want a career where they can be proud of something where they're helping and serving a public good as well as earning a solid income. And I think that those are important things to highlight that about going into a water career. I think that's interesting that you bring up like the blue collar worker shortage in particular. And yeah, I've actually been working on a couple different projects in Black and Veatch to try to like think about some of those issues. And I'd love to share them with you, maybe like one day when we see how well they work out.
Yeah, no, it'd be great to learn more about what you guys are doing over with Black and Veatch, especially to try and drum up some more support. And
Yeah.
I like what you said too about highlighting the shared purpose element thing. That's something that I
Hmm.
think a lot of the young professionals over the years have mentioned, that there is such a drive and a purpose behind the work that is done in the water industry, and it's such a
Hmm.
critical industry, and it's
Hmm.
because it's overlooked, people don't realize the criticality of it. um,
Yeah.
but like being able to share that sounds like a good thing, and I'm sure that if there's more people like you who are really big like data nerds, if you can show, hey, look at all this data that you get to analyze, I'm sure you'd
Yeah.
get a
Yeah.
bunch of people interested that way too.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Judy, thank you so much for joining us today and talking a little bit about what makes you tick, what you like about your career, and about Ultimate Frisbee as well. It's really great to learn more about you. For everyone who's watching, you can read some more about all of our young professionals in a link in our description below. We also have video links to the previous young professionals, so check those out from last week, and join us soon for the next video every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the month of May at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook. Thanks again, Judy.
Great. Thank you.